Okay, I do remember how to do that. And yeah, I can send out a link to the recording. We'll probably put it on the SPJ YouTube. Um, okay, well, thank you everyone for being here for this presentation. My name is Eric Peterson. I'm the executive director of the Utah Investigative Journalism Project. I'm also on the board of the Utah Headliners chapter of the Society of Professional Journalists. Just quick couple announcement things. We are going to, well, let me see. I'm going to share my screen. We'll just start my presentation. We're talking today about kind of like digging with digital databases and some cyber sleuthing, or what's more commonly known with a lot of people out there as the open source investigative techniques. And I have kind of like two separate trainings on these things, but I wanted to try and kind of like combine them into one training. So I try and cover a lot of ground. But I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation. Okay. Just need, let's see. Just have to have this. Okay. All right. Okay, so this is me, Eric S. Peterson, E. Peterson at utahInvestigative.org. That's my email. Quick announcement here, since this is a joint venture. If you're interested in joining SPJ, you should definitely shoot us an email, utahspj@gmail.com. Or you can also shoot me an email. If you're interested in learning more about what we're doing, not only just becoming a member of, one of the most robust and, dynamic, association of journalists nationally and internationally, we're also looking for people who might want to like join our board and can help out when we do things like put on training events, deal with craziness that comes up at the legislature, getting ready for like the awards banquet and judging awards. So there's some info for you there. If you want more info, I'd be happy to give it to you. So I'm also doing this through my nonprofit, as I mentioned before, the Utah Investigative Journalism Project. And I do other trainings. This is actually a little bit unusual for me. I usually like to go directly to a newsroom and do a training just for a group there. So if you are interested in other trainings like this one, they're totally free. Do stuff on grandma, interviewing, using Excel, things like that. And that's the website there to like look at some of those training options if you're interested in them. Okay, let's dive right in to databases. Like I said, I'm trying to like cover a lot of ground in this, and I want to like talk a lot about databases, but also get into some of these techniques that help you like do better Google searches and find people online. But so some things I might go over a little bit faster. Some of you may be already super familiar with some of the databases that we're going to go through. I'm quite certain there's probably a few of you that might even be better than me at like utilizing some of the court databases, for example. But we're going to go through these things and try and show you some new uses, or maybe even databases you're already familiar with. But obviously, it's very helpful for reporters to have a good understanding of like what's available in databases, right? Because it's so much faster than filing a grandma request if we actually know that at our fingertips we can find campaign donation information, licensing records, property records, all these sorts of things. So we're going to start government spending. And as we go along too, like I'm going to run through this slideshow, and all these slides will be available for you guys as well. We'll try and put this video up on the SPJ YouTube. And I may also, as we go, try like jumping out of the presentation every now and then to like look right at a database so we can see it. Um, Forgot to add another caution, which is that I'm kind of like trying to do this presentation and trying to watch my email and the chat. So if an issue comes up, I hope I catch it, but I'm kind of doing a few things at once right now. So I'm hopeful that, if you have a question in the Q&A, if I don't see it while we're, cruising through all these databases and different techniques, we'll hopefully have a little bit of time before the hour is up. Okay. And I hope to, like, you can see clearly these slides, but, talking about like government spending, transparent.utah.gov. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the old transparency site. Used to be kind of a pain. And they've updated it, and it's still kind of a little tricky to figure out. They've made some things that are kind of interesting to kind of quickly look at. Other areas where, like, the old system, it was a good place to go and figure out all of the compensation received, like at a school or a school district or a particular government agency. It's still here. The functionality has just changed a little bit. One thing like I recommend people go to is when you go to transparent.utah.gov, you kind of go down the middle of the page, and a couple really useful resources: compensation downloader, vendor payment search. So the compensation downloader, that's one where you can download into an Excel spreadsheet, or CSV. I think they might have a Google Sheets option. I'm not sure, but like you can download a spreadsheet and see, oh, okay, here's everybody, at this school or this city. I can see all the compensation they received, their salary, benefits, things like that. Vendor payment search, similar. That's where you track payments to a vendor from multiple entities, right? So that can be interesting, right? If you're looking at a particular business or an individual, and maybe they're, getting paid by multiple government agencies. So you can do the vendor payment search, search for one particular company or individual's name, and then you'll see the different compensation they've received from different government entities. Let's see. Spending.utah.gov. This is also an interesting site. This is kind of like with the transparent Utah, like that's really good for searching, especially local information like city, county. You can look up, you will see like state of Utah information on there as well. But the spending.utah.gov is really focused just on kind of like state spending. It's a little bit of a buggy website. Sometimes it takes a while to load, but it does have like, a real simple search. You can just put in a person's name, and kind of like a vendor search in the previous database, you can see what comes up, is a person getting paid by multiple state agencies, and do some more kind of data exploration and compensation there. This is not quite a compensation thing, but like, I think this is a useful site to refer to. It's kind of related. Public meeting notice website. I don't know, maybe some of you guys are already familiar with this, but it's generally this site that where, all the public meetings, they put up their agenda and their minutes and stuff. And if you're looking into, especially kind of like local spending and different things like that, it's useful to use this as a resource, not just to know about a meeting coming up, but to also research about, meetings that were held. Like you can go to the public meeting notice website and you can look back at meetings that have already happened. And, there might have been like a city council presentation, and they will upload a bunch of information about a planned development, something going on like that. And you can access all that information. You usually have links to also go and hear, the archive video and recordings of meetings. So that could be a really useful resource as well. As a database. I mean, it's not just a place to go, oh, this is when this public meeting is going to happen, I'll be there. You can look back at it as a historical reference also. Okay, court databases. Utah state courts, like you want to get on Exchange. again, this is one of those databases. Some of you have used it a million times, but I'm also surprised sometimes. I've done trainings where people from different organizations didn't realize that as media you get free access to this. So if you're in your newsroom didn't know about that, you want to send an email to Tanya Mashburn. She's the PIO at the courts, Tanya M at utahcourts.gov, and say, hey, our newsroom would love to get free access to this. So the court exchange service is, once you have that media access, it is a free, you get a free monthly subscription. However, there's a charge to, download documents, but you can still do a search, pull up dockets, look at dockets for free. And then, find the documents you want, 50 cents. It's not great, but it is very convenient and easy to search. And I think I will see. Let's see if I can jump out of my presentation and let's go to the courts. Oh, this is hard to see. That's not it. Got this share thing at the top of my screen, makes it hard for me to get the right window up. Okay, don't look. I've recently kind of done some updates to this site as well. The main interface has changed, but I don't know what it's actually added. Except this annoying CAPTCHA thing. Okay. So just real quick, like a couple things that are useful to remember here. Like if you're doing a search here, couple things you might want to remember to try and hit on this jurisdiction, hit district and justice, get more records. If you're putting names in here, there's an asterisk, which is kind of like a wild card, and that's actually something we'll talk about a little later on when we're getting into the Google operators. But an asterisk is just kind of like, it's a catch-all. It's something you will put in a search, and it applies here in the court exchange. If you want to search a person's, for example, like if there's a middle name, but you don't know it, or a middle initial, or there was a time I did a story on this guy whose name was Tyler Jacks, and I think if you just search Tyler Jacks, it doesn't bring that much up. But if I put an asterisk after the first name, that will create a wild card to fill in with a middle name. And let's see if this works. Now I did that, and you can see these different, it brings up a lot more options. Tyler Clyde Jacks, Tyler Augustine Jacks. This is the one. Did that, I could find actually there's more felony charges against this individual. A couple other things that are worth knowing about this is that, you can, you don't have to be searching a specific person. You can search, you could do, for example, a date range. You could search a case type. Look at all these interesting things: asbestos, attorney discipline, eviction. That's something I've been doing a lot of lately. And I can, let's see, then I can just search for all of a certain type of case that have been filed like in a week or a month. Let's see. Oh, you guys aren't seeing the court search. Oh, I'm sorry. That is really weird. Oh, I'm so sorry. I just saw that. Okay. That is interesting. Okay, let's see. Okay, you guys see it now? Okay. Thank you. Okay. All right. Sorry, we'll get this all figured out. Okay, I'm sorry about that. So let me go back and show you that really again quickly about the asterisk. Like if I put in here, this was the name I put Jex and I put Tyler, and I just did a search there. You see just a couple hits. I put this asterisk next to his name. That will be a placeholder for a middle initial. Now I can see a lot more results populate in the screen. The other thing I wanted to show you there is that there is the different things you can play around with. Like you can do a search scope. Like I could do a county. I could do, Carbon County. I could do a case type. Civil rights. I wonder if there's any of these. And then that's interesting. And so then it's just filled this up with civil rights cases filed in Carbon County. Only one page, but so you don't have to know a specific name of a defendant or a company or something you want to search. You can search by types of cases that might be filed. Okay, so I'm going to try and switch back to the presentation, and let's hopefully make sure I get everybody looking at the right screen again. Okay. Hopefully you guys are seeing the presentation now. Okay. Thank you, JR. Okay. All right. Let's see. I gotta jump ahead a little bit. Federal courts are probably not going to dive into this. The Pacer case locator. Pacer, is the service you sign up to review federal court cases. If you're not familiar with this, it is it's pretty cheap. In fact, I think if you do like less than $30 of searches in a quarter, they just don't even try and bill you. But the document searches are something like 10 or 20 cents a document. Pacer it's a little confusing when you're first trying to sign up for Pacer or you're utilizing it, because there's a Pacer court search and a Pacer, I think it's case locator. Yeah, Pacer case locator. I recommend going to the case locator because that takes you to a search where you don't have to know a specific court. You can search just like a name. You can put in like a region like Utah, and then it will and then it will bring up different cases. And you can also search by party, which is pretty useful. Sometimes a person's name might not be in like the title of the case. They might be a party that's maybe an attorney, or they have a different connection. They're not one of the first named parties. So if you do a party search, you're more likely to find things like that. Let's see. Okay, business databases. And let's see, I'm getting all sorts of messages. I just want to make sure everyone's okay. Okay. Business databases. You'll go to the Utah Department of Commerce site to like look up just principles of a business. I have the website here, secure.utah.gov, whatever. You just Google Utah business search. You can do an entity search and a registered principal search. These searches cost money, like $1, and that will show you who the members of a company are. It is possible that there might be like kind of silent partners in a company that won't be show up as registered principals, but you can see people in a company through pretty cheaply. There is another option too as well, which is trying out opencorporates.com. This is probably a better way to like get started with like a business entity search. This is a free database that scrapes information from all of the like Secretary of State and Department of Commerce's across the nation. So you can search here, and it's also useful like if you are looking into like a businessman for example, is in Utah, you search the name of that officer in open corporates, and then maybe you see other businesses in other states that he or she is affiliated with. Opencorporates.com. So that's a useful reference. I'm going to talk a little bit about searches on publicly held companies. I don't know why. Like, I feel sometimes especially like a local reporter, we feel like looking into publicly held companies is something that only people at like Wall Street Journal and like Forbes do. But there are so many interesting local stories about the publicly held companies here in Utah. If you're a little bit familiar with how to like search for these documents with the Securities and Exchange Commission. And by public, we're talking about companies where, like there's stock, right? Members of the public can invest in this company. It's that big enough. It's not like a LLC. So if you search a publicly held company, you get the benefit that they have to like disclose a lot of stuff. The regulations are they have to disclose a lot about risks and, lawsuits the company's facing, all sorts of problems. So you can search. You can do like search for a specific company at sec.gov, the Edgar search. They have another site as well. Oh, dang, I just jumped out, didn't I? Okay. I accidentally clicked on that link. This is the Edgar full text search. You guys, everyone seeing that? The Edgar full text search. This is a kind of a simplified search. It's also useful, like you could do a search for a company name and you would find that company's filings, but you might also find other filings from different companies that mention that company. And so that can be interesting. And it's a easy way to like kind of get started looking at, public documents for public companies. I will show you when you like find a company like on an Edgar search result, a good place to start I find is like the 10Q, which is it's the quarterly report of a company. These publicly held companies have to file quarterly reports. And this one you find when you get into the Edgar site, it kind of looks like kind of confusing. There's a lot of text there. It's hard to know what you're looking at, but if you click on documents for 10Q, that'll pull up like a quarterly report document. Well, it'll pull up another screen where like you have to click on the document link. But once you're inside like a 10Q or a 10K, it's a huge text wall. It might be 100 pages long. It would take you hours to read it from start to finish. But the good thing is that like you can do simple searches to like kind of get to interesting stuff. I could go into a whole thing about like what to look at money wise in a publicly traded company, but you might want to just look for some search terms like legal, risk, regulations. Those will take you to sections of the documents that talk about lawsuits that are coming up. Like I found really good local stories about prominent, local companies that were just in their filings. They had to disclose them. Related party is an interesting search term. That is kind of like a disclosure of a conflict of interest, if you will. Like a company has to disclose if, for example, they have a vendor who is like the CEO's brother or something like that. There's other SEC reports that are worth like becoming familiar with. An 8K, that's kind of like some kind of breaking news with the company. Like there's a bankruptcy or, the CEO steps down. 10K is a detailed annual business summary. It's kind of like the quarterly, but it's for the whole year. A proxy statement discloses executive compensation, major shareholders. And like I was just showing you with that 10Q, that's a quarterly report. Okay, professional licensing. This is another really great database to kind of get into things. This is where you're going to see how a lot of private business operates. We think of business, we think, well, their records aren't public, but so many professions are regulated by the Division of Occupational and Professional Licensing that there is a good deal of information about them once you start exploring things at the Doppel site. Let's see. So we've got license discipline searches. When you go to the Doppel site, they've got some kind of helpful categories right there on the landing page, like, is my professional licensed? You can look up a name and see if, this guy's actually licensed. Has my professional been disciplined? Right? Like, you can do a search um, of an individual to see if they've been disciplined. Doppel also has like a discipline newsletter. And so this used to be on their main page, but they've changed their main page as well. And the newsletter is interesting because every month they create this document that lists all of the disciplinary actions that were taken against license holders. So a doctor that's over prescribing, things like that. There's a newsletter with all of that information. You can follow it at this link. It'll give you some brief detail about like the discipline that was taken. You could probably get more detail about the problem if you file a grandma. You'll get a lot more detail that way. But going through those newsletters, like if you don't know what you're looking into, like, but you go through, you might be able to see some interesting stories. I did a story a long time ago with the City Weekly where I went through all of these newsletters for like 10 years and gathered all of the doctor discipline, and we made a database so that people could see, kind of like all of the things that doctors got disciplined for over like 10 years. Doppel also has, you can request info on licenses. You can get the data of like all the people who are licensed in a particular profession. This might be interesting. For example, there's, you can see all the profession types kind of on this screen. There are psychologists. There's mental health clinics, things like that. You could pay like, I think it's like $5, and you could get all of the data for a county of a particular license holder. You could say like, this is what it looks like in our county for people who are licensed to do substance abuse kind of like care, or mental health clinics, or any of these other types of professions. Okay, consumer protection searches. These are interesting too, because of the legal actions search option. I don't know if I'm going to hop out or not, but like when you go to like Utah Consumer Protection, the main site, there's a legal actions search. You can see that kind of blue icon right there in the middle with the gavel. And what this has is it starts out with like a field where you can put in the name of a person or a company. And consumer protection, they are, regulating companies that are accused of ripping off consumers, and they are issuing like administrative citations and administrative actions that are at an administrative level. So a lot of this stuff doesn't show up in your court search. So this is a really interesting place to like check out, a company and see, did the Division of Consumer Protection fine them like $5,000 because they promised something they couldn't deliver. They didn't deliver on what they had promised a customer. And so this is an interesting search, and you can go to the legal action search and click on advanced search. That's what this image here shows, as an advanced search. And this will actually allow you to just search by a date range. So you don't have to know the name of a person. You could just search, all of the actions they've taken in the past year and see a variety of companies. Click on them and actually see PDFs of the documents about these actions that have been taken against them. Okay. Campaign finance. Campaign finance records. There's a lot of options here. I might not go a ton into a lot of these, but disclosures.utah.gov. This is where you're going to check out a lot of state records. Your campaign donations, your campaign expenditures. Disclosures.utah.gov it's added a lot of info in it. I don't think it has every like city and county. It might have actually every county race, but there are probably some smaller cities where if you want campaign, expenditures and donations, you might have to go to that individual city clerk and ask for them. But it's very robust, and there's a lot of records here, easy to search. The federal side, you want to like see who's donating to our senators and Congress folks. You want to go to fec.gov/data. It's probably the easiest way to start navigating that. It can be a little tricky. Let's see. Oh, I think I want to. We'll go. Yeah, I should let's go into the disclosures site just because it is useful. I'm going to hop over to this, and then I'm going to make sure that the presentation is looking at the right screen. Okay. Okay, we should be looking at the disclosures site, disclosures.utah.gov, public search, advanced search, search by name. These are all pretty easy, but this is useful now just because let's see, let's do Cox. Spencer Cox. It used to be that the conflict of interest forms used to be like you have to like go to like the legislature's site, for example, or a different agency's site. They started putting those on disclosures.utah.gov. So there's a lot of information all right here. Like if I go back to one of these older years, 2020, okay, so this was an election year. The reports are organized by, convention, primary, September 30th. In all of these, I usually like to just go down to all filed reports and download a spreadsheet of all of the expenditures and donations. The other interesting thing, though, is the conflict of interest form. Like that, this is always interesting. You open these up and they have to disclose, who's their employer is, what their spouse does. This is probably not too exciting for Cox, but sometimes you can see, you go to certain lawmakers, you can see all of like the development companies they have, what their wife does, what their husband does. A lot of interesting information there. I did want to also show you the Stock Act disclosures for our federal candidates, just because they're interesting as well. Actually, I should make sure I've got time to really get into the Google operators and stuff, but let's see if I got this on the right. Okay, yeah, we're seeing this. So our Congress folks, they are subject to this thing called the Stock Act. I forget exactly what that acronym stands for, but they basically also have to disclose all of their like investments and assets. It's a transparency measure, so like you can tell if your congressperson is profiting off their inside knowledge about what's going on. You may have heard stories in the past about certain like lawmakers that they got advanced briefing about like the pandemic or 9/11 or something like that. Or maybe not 9/11, but I do think it was with the pandemic. And then they sell off a lot of stocks. So you can search people that way. I always like to show Mitt Romney's report just because it's amazing. this report. So it's going to list, list like all of his wealth essentially. And when candidates file these, they're also to list, this is the annual report, but they're also supposed to list periodic reports when they sell off stocks. But this shows like some of the value of some of the stuff, like his investments. You start getting down here, like Goldman Sachs bank deposit, and you see they don't have to give an exact amount, but there's a range here. And this is Mitt Romney's like, it takes like 2 minutes to scroll all the way to the bottom without even looking at anything. It's pretty amazing. And these are just interesting to check up on every now and then, and see, like what a candidate or, an office holder, where they have their money, like how they're making their money. There's a lot of potential for stories in these. Okay, I'm going to go back to my presentation. I showed the conflict of interest forms. Okay. Okay, I know, I apologize, I'm going fast. There's just a lot of stuff to cover here. And I want to talk now a little bit about like kind of using this open source investigative techniques, a lot of which it involves things like, learning how to like Google better, if that sounds kind of dumb, but understanding Google operators really helps you refine your web searches. And some of you have probably already been doing some Google operators. Like I'd be willing to bet most of you know that if you put quotation marks, for example, around a search term, that's telling Google, I want you to look specifically for this search term. Big reason why I wanted to incorporate this Google operators open source investigating into this presentation is because they actually changed the algorithm this past summer. It was kind of a shock to me. And so they've changed some things up, specifically regarding the quotes search. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But here, I'm just going to like show you some of the basic ones, kind of help you understand how they work. Site searches. These are really useful. Like you tell a site search, you're telling Google, I only want to search inside a site. So an example, site:/sltrib.com. So I'm looking for just something in the Tribune's website, right? As I mentioned before, quotes, for targeted searches. And so I can combine all these, right? So if I do like site:/sltrib.com, hatch in quotation marks. Now let's say that like I was actually trying to find an article about what was that old county councilman's name, Joe Hatch, but I'm like searching elections and Joe Hatch and Hatch, and it keeps bringing up Orrin Hatch, right? Because that's the longest serving senator. His name was in the paper so much. I can use the minus side to exclude unwanted results. So site:/sltrib.com, quotations Hatch minus Orrin. So that's going to exclude all the ones that reference Orrin Hatch. Okay, other Google operators are super interesting, useful. File type. You can do like file type : and then you do PDF, docx, PPT for a PowerPoint. And then you're going to just focus on those types of searches. PDF is really interesting. There are so many PDFs that get uploaded about different things. I think I actually was doing a PDF search a while ago about the Utah Citizens Alarm, that militia group. I was just trying to find stuff, and when I did a PDF search, I found like a letter that a professor in Georgetown had sent to Provo Council talking about how what they were doing was unconstitutional. And it was like a kind of an obscure find, but then like that person ended up being a source in that story. You can search inside a URL by typing in URL : and then the search term. As I mentioned before, the wildcard, the asterisk, like you can use this as a placeholder. If I was doing like Dr., asterisk, then that's gonna tell Google just to fill in that with a name. And, if I use other search terms with it, maybe I'm trying to find a Utah oncologist, Dr. asterisk, Utah cancer, things like that. Let's see. The around search, This is a useful one. If you put two search terms, in this example, I've got Reyes around, and put a parentheses and put a number in that parentheses, that number is going to tell Google to search for these two search terms within, the distance of 7 words from each other. So find me the hits where Reyes and the name Tim Ballard are within like 7 hits of each other. 7, the numbering, it's kind of up to you. 7 is good for like trying to find them in a post title, 17 for a sentence, 30 for a paragraph. Okay, so the new algorithm that I mentioned a little bit before, Google has changed it now so that it will ignore your quotation mark search if another search term sends a stronger signal. Google has essentially decided that they want to make more money, and so they think that the more powerful signal should always overrule, even if you're specifically telling Google, no, I just want you to search for this thing in the quotation marks. So you have to kind of if you're trying to I don't know if you do this, I do this sometimes, I'm investigating somebody, maybe I'm looking for a connection between a businessman and a politician. I'm searching their names together. Well, there might be the possibility that, one signal is so strong that it's just going to kind of corrupt, you might say, the results you're getting and ignore something that's in a quotation mark search. This was a search I played around with the other day. I put in quotation marks Paul Pelosi and in quotation marks Payson, my hometown, and brought up a lot of searches that would usually just have Paul Pelosi and then have no mention of Payson at all. But if I put in Paul Pelosi around 20 quotation marks Payson, then I got just 2 hits, and they were from, not my hometown, but in Arizona, something called the Payson Business Journal, talking about the Paul Pelosi attack. So the quotation mark thing has changed. It's still useful. I would say keep using the quotation marks. That's still targeted, but it could be skewed depending on what you're searching. And so you might need to play around with it. You might need to use this around operator to get at what you need to. Okay. I'm gonna try and have 5 or 10 for questions. So let's see how much of this I can get into. I love tracking people online. There's a lot of useful things you can do. My general rule of thumb, for example, on Facebook, is I'm trying to find a source. It's easy to find them on Facebook. It's not always easy to communicate on Facebook, right? You could try and friend them. They might ignore that, never see it for, weeks or months. But I usually try and start doing this kind of 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon kind of approach where, in the past, I've looked at an individual and my first instinct is I want to find an older relative. I'm looking for this individual's mom probably, or their aunt or their uncle, specifically because I'm looking for somebody that probably owns a house. I will, oftentimes, if there's a younger person, say they're not a homeowner, I am looking for their parents, and so I go to their Facebook profile. If you go to that person's profile photo, click on the likes and the comments, you're always going to see a comment, and it's from the aunt or the mom, and then the person is saying, "Oh, thanks, Aunt so and so. Thanks, Mom." Oh, now I know the mother's name, the aunt's name. Then I might look at that person to see if on their about page, are they associated with a business that I can call or I can email? If not, what is their name like? And can I look it up? I don't have here, I think, the assessor site, just because county assessors vary pretty differently, kind of in the format. However, it's useful to remember that if somebody owns a house, their name is on a county record. So more than once, I found a person's name. I look them up on the Salt Lake County Assessor site. You can do a property owner search. In some counties, this might be in the recorder's office. In Salt Lake County Assessor is a really great site. and I search that name, and then I've got an address. And depending on like how what the situation is like, you could go knock on that person's door. If that seems a little invasive to you, you might start by just writing them a letter. Um, how often have you gotten a letter lately that wasn't just like spam or something? Like it really gets people's attention. And a lot of times people appreciate that you wrote them a letter. If they respond to the letter, then they probably want to talk to you, and you probably don't need to go and knock on their door. But yeah, that's kind of like my main kind of like approach, especially online. The other thing I'm looking for if I like go onto someone's page is to see if they have an Etsy store or they're trying to sell something. When they put those functions on Facebook, they usually have a pretty responsive option to like message them. And I've, contacted people before that way. I saw that they had a GoFundMe or they're trying to sell something and reached out to them that way. And let's see if I got enough time. Yeah, we got a few minutes. I talked about something that I also just started exploring a little bit in terms of like tracking people on is LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is a pretty massive online community for professionals. There's a lot of information there. There's a lot of communities there. These are people that are really, trying to find jobs or trying to do networking. And you can do some searches with this and incorporate Google operators, for example, to kind of do targeted searches and find connections with people. So this often comes up too, especially like if maybe I'm trying to find somebody who is at a company. Maybe I'm trying to find out about this company. Maybe they're a firm, like a former employee, right? Like, so I could do like try and use the language that you see on LinkedIn through like site:/linkedin.com @youngliving, right? Something like that. For your Google operators, though, you also want to make sure you incorporate a little bit of the specific kind of what's the terminology? The specific URLs, I guess, of LinkedIn. Like if you are looking for a company on LinkedIn, it will be, the search will be like linkedin.com/company. If you're looking for an individual, the information after that / is IN. So like I could do Utah Jazz in quotation marks, site linkedin.com / IN. And then I'm going to find individuals who are a member of Utah Jazz. LinkedIn.com. Yeah, as I mentioned before, linkedin.com /company. That's going to show companies. Like I could search for types of companies. I could do, site linkedin.com /company, search genetics, or maybe there's like a type of company I'm trying to find somebody, a possible source, at, in an industry, I can do searches that way. You can also like add in, places, like in like this example, you see that there's Aliso Viejo, CA. So you could search a company, you could put a term, you could then put in like Salt Lake City, or Provo, whatever. LinkedIn also has like in its interface these kind of company filter searches. A basic search in LinkedIn will present results that may come from the company. So you want to like click on that filter and, like, I mean, if you're just doing the basic search and it's all of the information a company is putting out there about itself, then it's always, you might not be getting the dirt, right? It might just be the flattering stuff. So you might want to check a different filter like author industry. So that's going to be posts from an individual's specific industry. Author company, posts from an individual's specific company. So that, will be posts coming from a company, but not the company necessarily. Or mentioning company, posts mentioning a company. Another really interesting thing I found out about is that, there are a lot of private groups on LinkedIn, and you have to, like you have to be a member to see who's in there. But you can use some basic Google operators to find people who are in these private groups. For example, when I was kind of putting this together, I was just kind of searching around LinkedIn to find closed groups, and I was like, what about top secret jobs or something like that? And I found out there's this closed group, this private group called Top Secret Careers. And it's like a group of people who network because they've got like a certain high level of security clearance, like in intelligence or the military. And it's a closed group. But then you just go to Google and you put in top secret careers, site linkedin.com/individuals, and you'll get, a list of people that are a member of this private group without having to join the private group. Other thing that's interesting too about like trying to contact people, there is a service called Hunter.io, and like if you are on like LinkedIn, like there are limitations on like how you can contact people. Let's see. Someone had asked if have to become a member to access information on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter. Yeah, I mean it's generally you're gonna have more access if you are a member of these different platforms. There's generally a free version, of all of these. I mean, well, yeah, especially Facebook and Twitter, but LinkedIn, there's a premium kind of access, but you don't need it. Like if you have that premium one, it might be easier to find a person's specific contact information you're trying to find. But this site, I don't know if you can see it or if my video is over it, but it's Hunter, I believe, .io. And yeah, Hunter.io. And this is a service that just analyzes emails to tell you like what the pattern of an email is at a company. So if you see on LinkedIn that somebody is at I don't know, like, the Utah Jazz, and if the emails are whatever, like Hunter.io will analyze and figure out what the pattern of an email is, so that if the guy's name is Jeff Smith, Hunter.io will tell you the email is likely j.smith@utahjazz.com or whatever. And so you can reach out to people that way. So I think I went faster than I thought, although we only have a few minutes left. Have any, let's see if we got questions. Somebody had asked about court searches. You can search for free if you go to a courthouse, but I would be surprised, like, yeah, if you're not a part of a newsroom, they might charge you. I would ask that email I sent with Tanya Mashburn's contact info. The Utah courts have, there was a law passed that they're supposed to make a certain number of searches for free. So like, even if you're just a freelancer, you're not in a newsroom, I would ask them about that. Even as a freelancer, I would ask them too, like, can I still get media access? I don't know that they would like really turn you down on that, especially if you could show them, look, hey, I published these articles in the past. I wouldn't be surprised if they would just give you that information. So yeah, we still got like 5 minutes left. Anyone have any other questions? Would you like me to like go back over anything? Oh, let's see. For nonprofits, people can see information such as salaries via the IRS. Oh, that was in the chat. Yeah, I'll just show you a site. Nonprofits is a great resource thing to search as well. Let me hurry and share my screen and show you guys GuideStar. Oh, we got a little bit. Let's see. yeah, if you haven't played around with GuideStar, this is really useful. Just need to move this thing so I can sign in. Oh. Yeah, somebody was putting in the chat talking about nonprofits. They have to file reports with the IRS as well. They have a lot of rich information in them. And you can go to guidestar.org, set up a free account, and then you can search all sorts of nonprofits. Intermountain Healthcare Inc. I don't think that's the right one. Oh, well, that might be 69 million. I think sometimes there's, oh, here's the foundation, 641 million for Intermountain Healthcare. Gross receipts, 138,780,000. If you click on one of these, it gives you some basic information, address, but the thing you want to look at are forms 990. These sometimes look like they're kind of out of date. Like you should actually be able to reach out to an organization, and you might have to like go to their office, but they'll probably have a more up-to-date 990 if you want to look at it. But you can access these ones online. And and then this one is going to show me a lot of information about them. There's some basic contact information. Here's some information on expenses for them for the year, expenses, revenue. You can scroll through and usually find like the highest paid employees. So there's the Mark Harrison, trustee, reportable compensation 2.9 million, other compensation 1.9. There's a lot to these. These are really useful as well. Let's see. Any other questions? Seeing the presentation. Yeah, 990 form. That's super useful. And like keep in mind, like a lot of these databases can be used in interesting ways, like going to like the state transparency website and getting all of the compensation information for like a city, a school. There's a lot of stuff you can do. Like you can not only like look to see like how much a person is getting paid, you could like sort the columns and then see if people, is there some nepotism going on in this government? Like is there a lot of people with the same last name and they're all city or county employees? A lot of stuff like that that's worth checking out. Yeah, compensation downloader, business searches, and thinking about all of these different databases and how to use them together, because you'll get information that you can take from one database, plug it into a new database, get a little bit more detail. One thing like I tell people is like, you might find on a piece of a document, a lawmaker's conflict of interest form, you'll find their middle name, right? And then you might be able to use that middle name to narrow down if you search the name in a court database and then find the right one. And then you might have court database might show the date of birth. Like if you're plugging in, checking and cross-checking all this information from these different databases, it's easy to background people, it's gain information, find your way into other databases to find even more information. There's a lot of rich stuff there. So Ian, I apologize if I was just like going at full speed. I was really trying to get a lot of information there in terms of, digital searching and the databases. And like I said before, like if your newsroom is interested in like a training and we want to just go through all of the databases, I'll show you all of them, or you want to see all of my like kind of cyber sleuthing tips, talking about other things as well, just beyond the Google operators. I'm happy to, take as much time as you need. As one advantage of like going right to a newsroom, sometimes people might want to talk about a story they're working on. That can be a little harder in this scenario. You're not sure if the other people listening in are your competition, but that is something I like to do now that things are kind of coming down in terms of the pandemic. occasionally I will bring donuts as well if that sweetens the deal for you. But if there's no other questions, yeah, I think we're at 1 o'clock. I think I will call that a webinar. And unless there's any, let's see, I think there's one other thing. Oh, just some thanks. Okay, hey, thank you everyone. And I'm recording this. We'll try and get this on the SPJ YouTube soon, and I'll get you the slides and a link to the video to everyone who joined us today. Thank you so much. Hope you learned something, and hope to see you again sometime for another training. Okay, bye everyone.